All right, everybody, welcome back to the second night of the 9th annual Enough to Keep Going Game Superlative Show. We are all back here again. We were here, we had 7 of our categories last night, which of us, all of us, had plenty to say. So, of us here on the podcast tonight, I am your host, DBQ Hams. Swissguard is back out of retirement at the end of the year here. Towmaster99, always glad to have you. And Game Logic running the boards, as always, keeping us honest, sounding good, and maybe even looking a little good in the process. Oh, well, before we get into tonight's, let's do a quick roundup and recap of last night's show. If anybody wants to step forward and complain one last time or advocate one last time, please jump in at any point in time. Ghostface Killer, glad to have you here. So last night we gave out 7 different superlatives. Our first was Best Lease on Life, New Lease on Life, Best Ported Game. Swissguard had Metal Gear Solid Delta, 3 Delta. Tau had Cyberpunk 2077 on Switch 2. Game Logic had FC 26 on the Switch 2 as well. And I had Octopath Traveler 0, the release of the mobile game Champions of the Continent. Then we went to Biggest Surprise Game. I had Forza Horizon 5 on the PlayStation 5. Tau had Rematch from the Sifu developers. Game Logic and Swiss both had Claire Obscura 33, which would not be the last time we talked about Claire Obscura last night. Talked about our most disappointing game experiences. Tau threw down the gauntlet with Star Citizen. Game Logic followed it up with a little bit of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Swiss had Ball Pit. And I talked about Borderlands 4. Then we talked about the wretched hive of scum and villainy, or the most emblematic of sleazy business practices. We focused our ire on 2 companies, Microsoft, both Microsoft as a larger company and also the Xbox division, and then EA. Then we looked at devs and publishers with the best attitude in the face of diversity. We had Ad Hoc. I had Ad Hoc from which released Dispatch. Game Logic had Sandfall Interactive, which of course is Claire Obscura Expedition 33, and Swiss had Tekla, which is Jonathan Blow's studio, and his upcoming game, which was announced at the Game Awards, which, again, as Swiss pointed out, we had all of these in before the Game Awards happened. Then we talked about most likely to be mentioned as in other media as pop culture. Game Logic had Donkey Kong Bonanza. Tau had Pokemon Legends ZA. I had Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, and Swiss had the extraction shooter Arc Raiders. And finally, we ended the night with most likely to be Game of the Year in other media outlets. And we had a sweep of that category with Claire Obscura Expedition 33. Tonight, we are tackling 7 more superlatives. If you are joining us in the chat, please jump in the conversation as always. If you have your own suggestions, love to hear them as well. If you are listening to this after the fact, we record live, usually every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tonight, we are doing a 2-part show. This is the second of 2 parts. But we will be taking a little hiatus for the rest of the calendar year and getting ready to jump back in, raring to go with at the first Sunday in January. So, Swissguard, your mic is working. Your coat of arms is protecting you. Towmaster, you have your giant mug of whatever you've been drinking over there. And Game Logic, everything, you've got your multiple drinks and multiple knobs and dials to keep us steady. So let's jump into our first game, our first category of the night, which is most likely to regret. When we originally had this, we had most likely to regret trading or not playing. And that tells you how long we've been doing this, that is trading even really a thing? GameStop would like to think it is. But so this is most likely to regret not playing in 2025. Swissguard, I'm going to start with you on this one. You've got a game here that I'm kind of surprised that it's in this category, given the amount of time that you played and loved the first one. So,
Hence the choice for regret. And my pick for this is Ghost of Yote. And I don't know why I didn't get around to picking it up either. There's some other games that we played this year, and I think maybe at the time I just grabbed Expedition 33 at the GameStop instead of Ghost of Yote. It was probably roughly about that time that I picked that one up. Um, just probably it was a choice to go with something a little bit more of a fresh experience because it's not a sequel. But you're right. I love Ghost of Tsushima. I might have done like I think I did every possible quest on the island when I played that game, and I really enjoyed it. So I was pretty excited when Ghost of Yote was announced, but um, yeah, I think it was just life and time, and I just haven't picked it up quite yet. But hopefully that'll change. But yeah, I would say like looking back and when I saw some of the trailer, like some like I forget what it was nominated for. It was nominated for a couple of things, I think. So you seen it across the screen. I was like, man, I do wish I had played that. But so for me, given how much I enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yote is my most regretful skip, I guess you could say, for 2025.
yeah, I have no doubt that you will eventually pick that up, given your love of Sucker Punch. Game Logic, you are next up here. You've got a pretty big title, but I don't remember you ever talking about it over the course of this year, which is probably why it ends up on this category.
So before I go, I have to issue slander for 2 counts
Wow,
on
we're
Swiss Guard.
Wow, we are starting off. If you were here last night, it at least took us 2 categories before we got into it. But tonight, we're not even pretending that we're nice. Let's just go.
Well, DBQ was on such a roll, I didn't want to break in during his intro, so I'm not gonna pull threads on either of these. But on one count, just it's super curious that I'm pretty sure that Ball Pit was one of Tao's enjoyed games of the year. I don't know if I should stack it up as like one of Tao's favorite games of the year, but I thought Tao was up there. It seemed like you liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was fun. I could see his what he was saying about it last night too, because the building mechanic is kind of weird in that game. Like it's kind of there as far as I've seen so far. But yeah, but I can understand where he's coming from though, and I've seen that a lot too online.
Okay, I'll retract one of my counts of slander then.
I was about to like.
Let's come with the
counterpunch
second
that
one.
So.
The second one isn't quite so much slander, but it's just to emphasize. Not only did you love Ghost of Tsushima, but we literally sat on this show for 2 years from the point it was announced, maybe 3 from the very first time it was announced, and listened to Swiss. I won't use the term gush, but of his incredible excitement for that game before it came out. So it's curious that you didn't get around to Ghost of Yote, but I absolutely understand with your schedule.
Not even just his excitement of it coming out, but it was pretty much the only game he talked about for like 3 months in a row. I mean, granted, he was just chipping away at it, but it was, if you look back at those agendas, Swiss had Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima. Yep. Still playing it. Still love it.
So,
I mean, I put a lot of time into it. Like, there's a lot of time in the Ghost franchise, so I don't need to pick up Ghost of Yote on day one. Doesn't mean I dislike the game.
So my pick for this category is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I actually did talk about it on the show DBQ. I'm not sure, it may have been episodes that you weren't on. But we had a actually really lengthy discussion about it on the show because of how close it cuts to being I always forget this term, it's right on the tip of my tongue, immersive sim. and actually to an extent that actually to me goes beyond what Dishonored and Dishonored 2 did. I mean, because it's hard for me to think of a game where you are truly living in this world all the way from like the furthest left side of being a deconstructionist type of simulator to like the actual adventure itself. And so it's just a huge game. I'm pretty sure there's 100 hours of content in it. But so many things in the game can get broken in, and I'll use that term positively, like versus like The Witcher 3, right? Because we all know my crankiness with The Witcher 3. It's like, look, if you're going to design a game and you're going to heavily couple it to event triggers, then it is on you to ensure that the code is resilient enough to ride through when one of those event triggers goes off out of sequence, and like the whole mission shouldn't be broken and become impossible for you to complete. And I see things like that in The Witcher 3 still to this day, despite all the DLC and all the patches. Those things are still there, not corrected. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I think the one that we actually talked about on the show was, I went on this mission to recover like some remains or a body, and so I went down like 2 paths, and after completing one path, then they told me to go basically see this person who was, I'll call him the coroner, but he was an exhumer. He like took care of bodies or whatever in the thing. And in the course of the adventure, we got attacked by like highwaymen, and I defeated one of them. But before I could take out the second one started chasing the gravedigger. Well, we were all running at the same speed, so it was literally like, in the physics of the world, impossible for me to ever catch them. At some point I broke off my chase and like went back to the wagon. So like the whole thing just kind of fell apart. And in fact, where I dropped off the game is I was like trying to figure out like, how do I recover from this? But the difference is like the adventure wasn't broken. It's just it was unpredictable and non-deterministic. And so I regret not spending more time in that, but it was just not feasible for me to spend more time in that. Like I said, it's, I'd put 12, 15 hours into it, and I was in like the first like major story arc, so very impressive delivery. And I know that there's lots of people out there like really, really enjoying it.
Now that you described that situation, I do recall you talking about it on the show. And you eventually got there. Like, I thought I had you in the logic trap of how can this be your game you're not playing? And you spend the first time talking about your gameplay experiences, but then you got there in terms of knowing that you could play more and wanting to play more. So, Henry Heck, thanks for coming back tonight. Glad to have you here. Speaking of coming back, we've got a sequel on the list for Tau, game that I played quite a bit of actually last year and less this year as it finally hit its official release.
Yeah, so I played the first in the series back in September, which was Hades, the original Hades. And actually before that, I played a game called Sworn, which is like almost a carbon copy, other than it just being like a King Arthur themed game. So I had played that on Game Pass, and then I saw Hades was there. I was like, I'm going to compare the two. So I played that, and I really enjoyed both of them. Actually, they were really fun games. I'd never played kind of that style of gameplay before, and I was really enjoying it. So when Hades 2 came out, I was like, oh man, this looks just a lot better. Just animation and just all that kind of stuff. And even not that Hades was bad, because I mean obviously it's spot on, but I was just saying I didn't want to play it obviously because I hadn't played the first one yet, or hadn't finished, and I believe it's pretty much a direct sequel, I think, or it has some things to do with the first one.
The main character is different, but there's definitely some narrative ties.
Right. Yeah, so I was like, I want to beat the first one, so I'll probably eventually pick up Hades on like either Switch or probably Switch, maybe on Steam, so I could play that and then play the second one. But yeah, Hades 2 was my regret for this past year.
All right. Game Logic, did you have anything? Look like you were Winding up. Okay. Then I'm going to jump into mine, which is a game that I played the demo of and enjoyed, but just never got around to playing the actual full game. And this is Lizard Cube's Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So, Lizard Cube, the Streets of Rage developer. This is published by Sega. This is a beautiful 2D side scroller action game, very much in my wheelhouse, as anybody that's listened to me over the course of this year. If it wasn't a roguelike beat 'em up brawler or a deck builder roguelike, chances are it was some type of side scroller. So yeah, I just haven't had a chance to play it. I have seen it. It did get a Switch 2 patch, and it looks a whole lot better on Switch 2 than it did originally. So looking forward to playing it. My son actually has a physical copy from Limited Run, so it will be probably a holiday, spend some time with it. So that was Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So Ghost of Yotai from Swiss, Game Logic had Kingdom Come Deliverance, I had Hades 2, and I had Shinobi Art of Vengeance.
Wasn't there another kind of ninja themed?
There's Ninja Gaiden
Gaiden.
Ragebound from the
Yeah.
Blasphemous developers. Yep.
Okay.
Which came out in July, and Shinobi came out in August. So
Nice.
So your memory does not fail you yet. You're not quite as old as I am. So, all right, let's move into our next category, which is most likely for a family game night. I say this in so the way that we have approached this is sometimes this means a game with family members. Sometimes this means a game that family members will sit on the couch and watch. We have had multiple different interpretations of this over the year. Tao, I always appreciate when you talk about how you play with your family, right? Like on this show, you have talked about whether it's Rocket League or all you and your child and your spouse playing Halo Master Chief Collection. Like you never fail to come up with ways to engage your family in this hobby and industry that we appreciate and enjoy. So I'm going to start with you on this one. And you talked a little bit about it last night, but I'm going to give you a chance to talk some more about it.
Yeah, I didn't have anything that we all had played this year other than the normal like Halo, like you mentioned, and I'll play some puzzle games like old school Mario, Dr. Mario with my wife, and some other just like kind of like literal game shows like Jeopardy and stuff like that. But the one I picked for tonight is Rematch, which is I obviously had talked about yesterday. That one I play with my son, so just a kind of Rocket League-ish once again, and we've played Rocket League together. We play it on and off throughout the years, so this is just kind of in the same vein. So just another kind of fun game to play with my son throughout the year. So it was nice.
Nice, yeah, definitely glad to. I would bet you're going to get some time to play together again over the holiday break. Swiss, this one is up. You're up next. But you and I both share this category, so I'll let you start it off.
Okay. It's Split Fiction from Hazelight. And my wife and I beat the game together. But it's like you said, it was one of those things where as we were playing, like the kids are sitting around on the couch and everybody's kind of enjoying it. A couple of reasons. We had beaten It Takes Two, but we enjoyed this one far more. I think the storyline was better. The characters were far more likable. Like they really nailed it this time, like the formula and just like well, as far as like the enjoyment factor for the family game night, it was fun to watch. Just some of the goofy things that happen make it enjoyable for everybody that's playing. And we also played it on the PS5 instead of the PC, which Vella's not as great at platforming with the keyboard and mouse as she is with the PlayStation controller. So that made for a less frustrating experience. So all
it's
things
a beautiful
considered.
game on PlayStation 5. Like it really, compared to the other, like in part, like It Takes Two is a stylistic art choice. But this really it really shines on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, We just had a really good fun time with it. I think when we really got into it, it was like an every night occurrence, and I think we beat it across the span of like a couple of weeks. But yep, Split Fiction.
Yeah. So yes, I picked Split Fiction as well. At first, when I think about these back in early fall, probably I would have said Mario Kart World would have had a chance to be up here. If I know that I would have asked my kids, they would have offered up Jackbox 11, which came out this fall and has been a hit around the college crowd. But from Thanksgiving on, this has been just in regular rotation for my son and I playing through, and it is one of those games where other people can sit down and watch, right? Like the different level setups and the different artistic motifs. Very rarely is there a game that my wife will sit and watch, but let me tell you, she was there for the floating pig level. So and also the action, the dialogue is really, sometimes it's definitely a little corny at times, but it's meant to be, and so it's enjoyable to watch in like a action buddy comedy type of way, right? So much so, I think, not I think, the reason I chose this is it's a great kind of partner friend, whether you're playing online together with somebody and talking through things or sitting next to each other on the couch. I picked it up as a Christmas gift for my son and his partner as well. So it definitely fits this family night category. So is anything else on that one?
I'll say everybody enjoyed it enough where we got some goats, and they named the two female goats that we got Mio and Zoe.
There we go. Which are the two main characters of the game
Of
for
the game. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Game Logic, you are last on this category, and you have a Nintendo pick here.
Yeah. So interestingly, I'm looking at the 2024 picks, and when I made my pick last year, it was because my oldest kid would come down to the game room, and there was this game that she liked, Arcade GK Rakugaki, which is very much kind of jet grind radio kind of game. This year, I guess just with all their activities and stuff, like they haven't really, neither of them have really engaged with any like current like zeitgeist games. And so the pick that I made was just Donkey Kong Bonanza, just because I think maybe the oldest kid saw it like one time and just kind of mentioned that as interesting. But like of all the things that I played, considering I was like probably Expedition 33. Probably not a game that I'm gonna have to play without like a ton of explanation. In addition to that, because it actually hits at some like really like kind of serious adult themes, right, from a family perspective. But yeah, I just put DK Bonanza for this category because it's probably the most family friendly thing that I played this year that I'd be willing to put in front of people, and that they would enjoy, because they would enjoy the the kids would enjoy the notion of digging a hole to China, right, on every other level. Although I didn't particularly care for that much. But yeah, that was it.
No, it's a really solid choice. At one point, it was potential in my list as well. When we took a family vacation this year, the house we stayed at had a big projection set up, and they hooked up the Switch 2 to it, and we all kind of passed the controller around and played some Donkey Kong Bonanza. So there's lots of ways to engage with that, even though it is a single player game. All right. Our next category is Best Storycraft. And Tao, I just started the last category with you, but your pick here, I have to start with you because you picked a game that I know we've talked about on this show, but I sure as heck would have never thought this franchise would get called out for its narrative.
Yeah, I mean, it was even weird for me because
You're really selling it here. Like,
No,
stand by your choice.
But I needed to. I was trying to pick something from this year. Like, obviously, Star Citizen's not a new game, so that was probably the only game from all my choices that wasn't from this year. So this year, I was trying to get to it. And yeah, I played like South of Midnight. I played Avowed, even Assassin's Creed Shadows. Obviously, great stories. But I picked this game just because in the past, this wasn't. And I'll just say what it is: Dynasty Warriors Origins. It's a very odd choice, but in the past, Dynasty Warriors was just, hey, you're in this point in history in China's dynasties. You're just going to go around and beat up people, and yeah, you meet Cao Cao and all these other characters, and they got somewhat of a personality. Like, yeah, sometimes I think they've, and it was a long time before I had played a Dynasty Warriors before this one. They might have some voice lines and stuff like that, but it's basically just, hey, all militaristic, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Here, though, Dynasty Warriors Origins, you actually got to create your own characters. It's a customized character. And then you kind of go through this world, meeting these other characters, and they actually have like personalities that come out. There's pretty lengthy, especially at the very beginning with the cutscenes and stuff, just kind of, building up the story and just, everything that's going on with, with your character that you created. So that's why I kind of threw it out there. I was like, yeah, I could have gone South of Midnight. I could have gone Avowed. I could have gone, like Assassin's Creed Cyberpunk even, but I wanted to give Dynasty Warriors it's time in the spotlight, sure, I guess, to say.
Yeah, the recognition of what it accomplishes. Yeah.
And I don't think that's a strange pick at all. Like, it's, we've played a lot of and I'm not even exactly sure from a historical perspective exactly what era that game is in China, because I haven't looked it up, but we've played a lot of, I'll just call them, well, I'm screwing that up because I said China, and I'm about to call the era by a Japan historical label, but I'll just go with it for the time being. We played a lot of like stuff like Three Kingdoms, Nobunaga, like unification of Japan kind of era type games in the last couple of years. And I will say I don't disagree with you. Like, there's a lot more meat on the bone from a story perspective in Dynasty Warriors Origins, particularly if you have some familiarity with that historical era, because it's kind of told like I don't want to say like a fairy tale, but it's kind of told like from a mythology perspective to me. Like it comes off to me like a story that I could hear, being handed down to generations, right? It kind of comes off like a little kind of Disney-esque, maybe. Obviously it loses that when you get into the violence aspect, but it's not a non-intricate story, and it's not kind of table salt like the past, I think, iterations of the series have been. And admittedly, I say that maybe that was because I gave them kind of short shrift, but yeah, I don't disagree with you that there's a little more effort put into the storytelling in Dynasty Warriors Origins, much more so than you would think that would need to be for a spectacle fighter,
Game Logic, go ahead and stay on the mic because you are up next with this category.
Yeah, kind of like Tal said, I mean, I could have obviously picked Expedition 33, but kind of in the holiday spirit, right, of kind of spreading the Christmas joy around, or the holiday joy around. I wanted to kind of give some other games their due. And this is yet another pick for Kingdom Come Deliverance too. What's really remarkable is, and I'm going to use another Witcher 3, reference here. And it's not to say, it's also a pet peeve of mine for, us as gamers, not us, but gamers in general, where we do this thing of like a game comes along and does something better than a previous game did, and we immediately suddenly in the instance declare that it's proof that the old game's design was bad. Like, so we're not doing that, right? But there is a stark difference that I kind of alluded to before between like The Witcher 3 and this game, in that in The Witcher 3, side missions are very encapsulated. Like you enter an area, you there's a you enter a loop of a subroutine, right? And it's encapsulated, and you conduct that mission. Whereas in Kingdom Come Deliverance, there's a lot more parallelism between like what's going on at any given time and like the rest of the world around you. And at any moment, the external world can intrude upon whatever side mission you think that you're in. Also a stark difference to Days Gone, right? Where Days Gone, there's literally like a transition screen, like as you enter missions in a certain area. And so, you know, multiple times, like even just on the like getting out of the DBQ, what's the getting out of the stockade, right? The, you know, the ancient thing where, you know, you put your hand in your heads in it and they kind of close the thing on you. Like leaving there when you're naked, you have no clothes, right? And transiting to your first town, just like a ridiculous mission, like instance just unfolded. As I like attacked this other guy who was being beset by highwaymen, and like I snuck off in the woods and then attacked them, and then I was like, oh well, I don't really need to get a job to earn clothes and a weapon because I just ganked these two guys and now I'm good to go. So I'm just gonna go off and proceed on my way. And then like I described the other kind of mission, the stuff is just very emergent, and that, yeah, I mean Ghost of Yote kind of does this as well too, where you think of a thing as a side mission, but the reality, but like it's so interwoven that the side missions are essentially the campaign. Like in Ghost of Yote, I have no concept of side mission, right? You're just living in the world, and this is very much so the case too. Like you don't really feel like you're on side missions. It's just this is a thing. The difference between Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Ghost of Yote is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you still kind of you kind of deliberately choose what you're going to do. You open the map, you decide where you're going to go. Whereas in Ghost of Yote, like the game starts, you get on your horse, you just start riding off across the landscape, or you put up your spyglass and pick a spot on the horizon, and things happen with no deliberate intent of your own in many cases, but still, just given its the way it exceeds the scope and scale of Ghost of Yote, I gave the nod here to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Thanks, Game Logic. Ramon Terrell, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. Swissguard, Game Logic may have wanted to spread the love around, but you are.
Yeah, I'm not going
it's
to
your turn
apologize. I picked Expedition 33. It's deserving of it. It doesn't. I mean, it's the premise was really cool, like in the trailers and everything. But like even when you like first like just get into like that initial, you know, the initial stage, and it starts to introduce the story and the characters and the setting and everything, they do an excellent job of just drawing you in. And when the game really kicks off, right, when you go on the expedition, like the tone, like the shift in tone, and it's impactful, and yeah, obviously they did a great job. So I briefly considered some other options here in kind of the same vein of like thinking, well, I want to give some other games their due, but then I just decided, nah, I'm gonna do the one that I really think had the best narrative experience this year for me. So
sounds good and well deserved, right? I mean, even I, who have not played a whole lot of it, really appreciate what it is setting up and the way that its characters are. But for me, my choice, it was a pretty clear winner from my first playthrough, even more clear after my second playthrough, and a complete lock by the time I went through halftime just to explore some more endings. And that is Dispatch. So as a comic book fan, as somebody who appreciates, you know, ever since I was able to read, appreciates choose your own adventure stories, the ability to have that thrown into a kind of grounded superhero world, Dispatch just really resonated with me. Love the music, love the characterizations. I could have spent a whole lot more time in that world, and partly that's why I came back to it even after a second playthrough. Is I just want to live with these characters a little bit longer, and to me that's a great sign of the story and the world that Ad Hoc created with Dispatch. So, and Nate is not here in the chat to hear me gush about Dispatch one last time, so But
I,
yes,
fig- I figured you'd have that for either this category or the next one. So that was
fair
a more
enough.
prediction.
Yes, I think I did not have it. It is not my next one. I'll tell you that. So our next category here is best comic relief. So best comic relief. Sometimes this is a full game. Sometimes this is an individual character. So Swiss, since you just kind of predicted what you thought mine would be, what was yours?
I picked split fiction for this one, and you actually had a kind of a good comment earlier when you were talking about it with Family Game Night. You said it's a little bit corny, the dialogue and some of the humor, but it's kind of meant to be. I really enjoyed the some of the tongue-in-cheek kind of meta aspects. There's this one scene where they're in like a car, like teetering on the edge of a building, and a bird lands on it, and then the car falls off. And as they fall down, I think Zoe's like, "This is so cliche" or something, and it's just like the story within the story kind of. I felt like the writers of it really embraced the fact that they got to kind of like they have like the characters are authors in stories of their own creation and experiencing that in
Right.
like kind of
But
a
the
meta
authors
way.
aren't great authors, right? The kind of whole setup is that these are people that haven't published anything. So
Yeah,
the corniness of the dialogue and the contrived
it's a little bit
situations,
fan fictiony. Yeah,
right? Like it fits with who these characters that they've created. And so that's where like it doesn't feel out of place in the world. So I love this pick.
yeah, and just that, and like you also alluded to another thing, like the flying pig. Like there's so many like weird little story sequences that were funny. I enjoyed the crazy dentist sequence where like you're going through this tooth fairy world as if you're 5 years old, and then there's a psycho dentist at the end as the boss. So like just a lot of little experiences like that. So I felt like it was a good pick for this one.
Great. Thank you. Thrifty, glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us again. Tao, you picked a game that if I look back at my Xbox play time this year, this game, if it's not a sports game, this game is my most played game on Xbox. And I think the voice cast and the narrative definitely speaks to this. So
Yeah, I gave a specific character here, but really all the kind of characters you meet in Avowed, or at least like your companions, I always thought had a little bit of comic relief to them. They're always putting in their quick jabs or whatnot when you're talking with other people, and sometimes even it was kind of unexpected too at the beginning. Like you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden they just chime in, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. And they're just this so and so person knows this person from some other adventure, and he's given a jab. But I said Kai, which is one of your, I think it's the second companion you get, because you get that first kind of little guy at the very beginning, but then I think Kai is your second companion you get, and he's always throwing out little quick jabs and blurbs and stuff. So, but like I said, all the companions were all pretty funny going through Avowed.
So Kai is voiced by Brandon Keener, who also did Garrus in the Mass Effect series, just as calling out the acting that was going on there as well. And speaking of some excellent acting, Game Logic, another well-deserved nomination and recognition for this game.
Yeah, so my pick was Monoko in Clair Obscure Expedition 33. So and his one recurring line is the one that I mean, just the character itself is just kind of comical. Like oh well, you haven't come across this character yet, Swissguard, have you?
I think I have, yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think so.
You're trying to figure out how much you can say with.
Yeah.
So while you think about that, I'm going to recognize the voice actor here, which is Rich Keebler,
Okay.
a comedian, a British comedian. You have probably, if you seen him in some other things. So
the guy I'm talking about, Swiss, is he actually becomes a member of your party. Is that the one you're thinking of?
I'm double checking. I haven't. It's not my party yet. So
Okay. So I will give it away. There's some great lines that this character has that are just super comical. Like his makeup, like what he is and who he is, and the lines that he mentions, which just like go. Sometimes when we talk about humor and comedic performance and scripting, we sometimes complain when things are too on the nose, right? When they're it's a bit, but the people like really buy into the bit instead of like making it a little more um innuendo or referential. um the scripted lines for this character go, I mean, he is a bit in and of himself, and he goes directly at it with some of his lines. But the nice thing is that while the lines recur, they don't like beat you over the head with it, right? um there's a couple cutscenes where those lines come up, and then they periodically come up in combat, but not like every single time. So it's just pretty hilarious. The way it sticks to the landing. So
I'm right at that point where we're basically with the Gustrels and everything. So I guess that's about to kick off right now. So
yeah, the character I'm talking about takes you'll pick him up quite a ways after.
okay, so I'm not that far in yet.
Yeah. But once you hit it, we can have this conversation again. But I think for the people who play the game, I think they get why I picked this character as best comic relief in a game that I played this year.
And Richard Keebler, who also voices multiple other characters in Expedition 33. And Swiss, he also plays one of the board members in Split Fiction.
Okay.
Thrifty, thanks for giving us your pick here with Comic Relief, Joshua and Estelle from the Trails in the Sky remaster of First Chapter. Nice to this Trails in the Sky. I'm glad that somebody mentioned it, because this one is one that did not make my regret, but is in my I hope to be playing it next year list. All right. We are moving on to our next. It's my turn, isn't it?
Yeah.
I should just. I got so wrapped up in looking at who all the other voice actors are, I forgot about my pick. So, my pick here is a game that I laughed out loud at, and spent most of today's Steam year in review. This is the only Steam game I played in April, and I played a lot of it, and it is Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. So this is by Strange Scaffold, who did El Paso Elsewhere last year. Game Logic, I think I Am Your Beast was on your list somewhere. There is no Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 1 or 2. So that's part of the joke. It is almost like the premise of it is you are like a Redfield going into it is Resident Evil and Dino Crisis mashed up together in a visual novel, and when you come into combat, you are doing a match 3 puzzle game, which in and of itself is crazy. But then there's this meta layer on top of it that the characters realize that they're in a video game, and that why are you there are lines of, well, that part's not developed yet, so we're going to have you do this, or why can't I go this way? And so it plays a lot with not only just straight up humor in terms of like characters and situations, but also some good humorous commentary on video game development and the industry itself. And as I was looking up this game in preparation to talk about it, I found out that there was a re-raptored edition of Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 1, which of course never existed until September when it was released. So again, I haven't picked that up, but now I have something for the Steam sale. Again, I love a match 3 kind of, I've talked about Puzzle Quest plenty of times, but Strange Scaffold is an amazing studio in terms of their ability to put out small games at a quick pace, but also games that deliver both unique and engaging experiences. So Creepy Redneck, I just want to say it one more time because it's fun to say. Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3. All right. We are now moving into our final three categories. We've got Hidden Gem, our most overlooked game. So, Game Logic, I'm going to start with you this time. Tao's choices are not as controversial. So, neither is yours. But I'm pretty sure this is not a hidden gem, but it is potentially an overlooked game.
Yeah, so my pick for this category was once again Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Yeah, I mean, definitely a thing that I think. Well, I mean, so definitely overlooked just because it's a smaller title right on the landscape. It doesn't necessarily get as much of voice and aplomb right out of the media outlets as some of the bigger games get from platform owners and whatnot. But I've described a couple gameplay scenarios in it tonight, and that should give you a pretty good description of how well, I hate to be cliche, but how immersive this immersive sim is. um but I'd still kind of maybe think of it a little bit as a hidden gem because even I coming into it did not realize that the amount of provenance that you have as the player character is as broad as it is. It's really remarkable and really incredible. Um, and I don't know that I hear that described enough. I mean, it is really a medieval playground, right? For you to go off and do whatever it is that you choose to do. And so here it is, my pick for definitely most overlooked game, more than anything.
Great. Yeah. No, I think, again, I love the stories that you've been able to tell both tonight, but also throughout the times over the course of the year as you're playing it. So mine is one that I have not talked about. At least I'm pretty sure I haven't talked about it. It made its way onto the agenda multiple different times over the course of the fall. But due to timing, I was like, it's a small game. I won't really talk about it. But I have loved it. I keep coming. I kind of come back to it. I haven't finished it yet. This is the game is called The Nightling by Torrelbound Studios. It is a Netherlands developer. Swiss. I think you should look this up. Just like I think last year I gave you a recommendation for your family. The Nightling is on PlayStation 5. It was announced to have a Switch release, and that was canceled this year. The game itself was announced last year. It is. It feels very much like Immortals Phoenix Rising or Zelda-like in terms of, you've got a big old shield. You are a knight squire, and the knight goes missing, and you have his shield, and that is your weapon. You swing the shield around. You can upgrade that shield. You can surf on that shield. You can hang glide. There is all kinds of different things. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Ramon Terrell says, I bought Nightling at launch and bounced off it. I can see that, right? Like, it is, I think it's had some patches since launch. It also is, if you enjoyed kind of that late PlayStation 2, early PlayStation 3 era graphic style, it's, it lands in there. It's not a complex game. But I think, yeah, I could see where some of the bugginess Ramon talks about. For me, it was cozy. It brought back. I had a stressful semester, and it gave me a return to some earlier times in life. And so for me, it was a lot of fun. It's also only like $20, so I didn't if you bounce off of it, it's $20. So that was the Nightling.
DBQ, did this game, kind of some of the things you mentioned made me think this. Does this game skate close to Medieval?
I feel no, not necessarily. It's been a long time since I've played Medieval. I think it is. It definitely feels inspired by Legend of Zelda, like a little bit of Breath of the Wildness in terms of navigation, but a traditional Zelda in terms of kind of you've got a lot of puzzle solving, and they're going to tilt the camera to give you some hints, and you're going to move around. So it is much more of a small scoped action adventure game. Like you're pretty much staying on this one island throughout your adventure. All right, Swiss, you are up. I love your pick. I mean, I appreciate and enjoy all of our picks, but this is one that we have not talked about tonight, and so I'm going to let you talk about it because it is definitely hits that hidden gem spot.
I chose Desktop Survivors 98, and this is like a bullet hell type game, but like all the aesthetics are from like Windows 98. And
I think the fact that you have like a clippy sword
yeah, I mean, it's
is
just
a great kind of
all
callback.
sorts of that. Like some of the weapons are like, like the old CD icon. They like it will bounce around the screen and kill the enemies. Like your recycle bin is like a shotgun of deleted files to hit enemies, and the map is like the old school Minesweeper from like you that's how you manipulate. It's just I don't know. The dude had fun just like taking that aesthetic and just bringing it up. And for a fellow of my seasoning, it was it was a throwback. I will say that my son played it and it was completely lost on him. Like he appreciated the bullet hell stuff. Like he's a big fan of Brotato, right? But like this one, it wasn't like all that extra, uh, like just the vibe. It
All the visual
didn't resonate.
trappings of
Yes, did not resonate.
yes, Windows
So,
98, 95. Yeah.
go ahead.
I will say Swiss very thematically like well woven, given your wretched hive of scum and villainy awardee. Like, and in a year where, like, as you mentioned, and I've given several tirades throughout the year of just like the state of Windows 11, and when people will say, it's not that bad, like, no. When you make that comment, I can tell that you haven't been around. Like,
Yeah.
when you talk about Windows 98, especially SE, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 10, like the state of Windows 11 and what we're going through is just not it. So this is a great pick, right? Given that context.
It was very much like remembering how things used to be, and I had the warm fuzzies just even from like I don't even remember like even the way that the menus look with like the weird blue, like pastel blue fading into white kind of on the sidebar. Like just it was good. So I had a lot of fun with that. I kind of like mentally like the Nightling looks like way bigger. I always kind of use the Steam review count as my tipping point, whether it's a hidden gem or not. And Desktop Survivors is right there, just over 1,000 reviews. So I was like, okay, I think this can qualify, and it's like $5. So if it's not a heavy investment for purely a nostalgia play with the bullet hell Vampire Survivors formula.
Yeah, I love that. There's been a couple of these over the course of the past year or two where it started all the way back with like Hypnospace Outlaw, but there's a couple different kind of late 90s browser themed type of games that are out there now invoking that nostalgia. So but most of them are kind of puzzly games, narrative games, horror games. This one is just a straight up kind of survivor game. So all right, Tao. I know that a company that publishes this game would probably agree with you that it is overlooked because they would love to be making more money on it. So why don't you tell us about your pick here?
Yes, another callback to our scum and villainy category from yesterday. But my pick for this one is Skate or skate period, as I like to call it, because that's what it has at the end of it, as a period. Yeah, for most overlooked. I know I guess it was kind of made of a bit of a splash when it first came out, the first few weeks, maybe month or so, and it just kind of died off. But past all the being online, like I know people are grumbling about that all the time, and those microtransactions, which is all cosmetic. Like, I mean, doesn't really give you any edge from what I've seen. It just has a really good skate. It's just a really good skate game. It's skate basically from back in the day, what you've played before. Yeah, graphically it's a little it's it's a little bit more cartoony maybe than the original three were. But it's a little stylized now. But it's still a lot of fun just to skate around this big city that you can go through. I've jumped back in just throughout the year since it's been released, and they had a big Halloween event. I think there's another event going on now that I had jumped into a little bit when it first started, but I'm sure there's like a Christmas one they're probably doing now. But it was just like it's just when you get down to the gameplay, it's just a very solid skate game. You can throw down different kind of obstacles and stuff pretty much anywhere you want. And, you can just create a line if you wanted to, or add on to some other the challenges they give you there too, and you can just do stuff like that. So I just had a lot of fun. I'm still having a lot of fun with it. I still jump into it every now and then. So skate is my pick for this year.
Nice. All right, we are in our final two categories. This next one here, life of the party, most fun game. Sometimes this has been simply a life of the party game that has been fun to play with others. Sometimes the most fun aspect of this equates to our personal kind of favorite game of the year or favorite game experience of the year, but that is not always the case. So sometimes the best game of the year may not always be the most fun, right? The best game could be the most impactful, but you could have more fun with something else. And to set all that up, every game on here has been mentioned in some capacity. 3 of the games have been talked about, or 3 of the choices have been talked about by others, but not by the person who nominated them and put them forward. So, Tao, I'm going to let you start off with what I'm going to guess is it your life of the party, or is it the most fun that you've had in a game this year?
Yeah, it's more of just most fun I've had this year. This would have been my probably family, game night kind of a game, but no one ever wants to play Mario Kart with me anymore because I pretty much always win. Not that I'm the best in the world or anything. It's just within my family. So it's Mario Kart World. I just had a lot of fun with this game, especially like when you do that Rainbow Road level at the end. It's just kind of awesome how they kind of lead into it, and just the whole track, just going through it, just kind of callbacks from different games in the past, and it's very pretty level when you're driving through that level. But just in general, it was just it's a really fun game. Even just doing like the open world parts where you can just drive around and find little puzzles and stuff. They're not hard or anything, but it's just kind of fun to see that and do that kind of stuff. You find little secrets here and there. Like you can drive, I think, like you can jump back into like a semi truck and you can actually drive the truck for a little bit. So it's kind of a goofy thing. But yeah, that was my pick for this year, is Mario Kart World.
All right, Swiss, you are up with a game that has been talked about, but not by you yet.
I picked Donkey Kong Bonanza because it's Donkey Kong, and it's just like, I mean, I don't know. I tend, like you said, this particular category can have many shades of interpretation, and I tend to fall on the more light, like what game is like lighthearted. It doesn't have to be a party game, but it's just that the more lighthearted fun, which is kind of different than just like the deep engagement fun. And I mean, I'm gonna, to quote Game Logic, it's very polished, and it's Donkey Kong. So like, it's like, yeah, it's gonna serve its purpose. So
yeah, no, I think that's a simple way to say it, because it is also my choice for most fun game of the year. as well. And I don't know that I would say it's my favorite game. I know that it's not the best game of the year, but I sure had the most fun with it. Like, in part that I didn't play nearly as much Mario Kart as Tao did. You know, I played some with my kids. I was ready for a reason to have purchased my Swiss. And but it's also a game that I have come back to and have just, it is the equivalent of digging a hole in Minecraft just because I don't want to craft. Like, I can just play around in the world and explore and string some of the different moves together to try to get somewhere. I think the writing, the Cranky Kong is enjoyable. I think the characterizations and the animations around Donkey Kong and his pantomiming, or the small little comments that that Penelope does when they're taking a nap and saving the game. And I think there's so many different, again, it's polished, it's fun. It is. I also completely see where Game Logic was coming from last night in terms of some of the criticisms around it as well. I tried to put something else on my list here, but every time I thought more about it, like, Donkey Kong Bonanza was the game that I just had just pure fun with this year. So, Game Logic, we've talked about, or this game has come up already tonight, but this game was not a surprise for me because I have heard you talk about it on this podcast and just, again, some pure enjoyment.
Yeah, so my pick was Ghost of Yotei. And kind of it goes along with like the description of this category, right? Most fun game. What I will say for 2025 in general is I think we had multiple examples of games that the descriptive term I'll use is just go down smooth. We talked a lot in the beginning of the year about Avowed and how it does a lot of things to just get crap out of your windshield, right? Friction, like things that just are normative within action RPGs now. That as Swiss often describes, make it difficult for you to find the fun, right? They don't necessarily make the game more fun. Yay, verily. Maybe they make the game more challenging. Maybe they make the game more sophisticated in its mechanics, but they don't impart like a higher fun factor. And that thing that I mentioned about Ghost of Yotei, right, is like there's so many times that there's a game that will be on my list, and I kind of plan out my rotation, right, every few days of like, okay, I'm going to play this game, and this game. And there's so many times that there's a game on that list that there's some trepidation associated with it. I got to hook up my wheel and pedals. I got to remember where I was in the thing. I'm going to have to Google like the basic mechanics of this, of No Man's Sky, because I haven't played it so long. Like, and this is just one of those games that like, you just show up and you get on the horse and you don't need to think about it. You don't have to do this. Like even Ubisoft games, and we all know I'm an Ubisoft stan. It's like, I gotta open the game up. I gotta pull up the map. I gotta like think about where I was. What was the plan again? What was my orientation? How am I gonna play this game? Which zone am I gonna take down first? Have I find the statistics? Like, have I taken down 57% of the zone or 75%? Do I need to go back to home base? And level up or see the quartermaster or whatever. As much as I love the Division 2, this is just a game like there's none of, like, you're completely unburdened. Like I said, you pop into the game. You raise your spyglass, or even if you don't want to be bothered with that, you just pick a cardinal direction, and head off in that direction, and guaranteed, undoubtedly, something will happen. You'll come across a roving gang, and then a whole adventure will break out. Like so many times, I've shown up, gotten on my horse, taken off in a direction, and I've shown up with a dude like sitting at a campfire, and I've gotten off and started talking to him, and then come to find out this dude is some murderer. Right? It's just a whole fight breaks out. Like, and maybe this dude is a mini boss and he's actually more challenging than just a regular scrub. Or, you see a billboard, a corkboard or whatever, You get off your horse, you go check it out. Oh, there's some bounties on it. Oh, well, there's 2 other dudes who happen to be there. Your bounty is the one that's on the board, and they realize that it's you. Like, and a whole thing breaks out. And so many times, like, you're planning on doing something, but again, you come across something and it just careens you off, like in another direction. Hunting down like a fraudulent monk. And then you get rewards for it. Like, that's the other thing that makes the game fun, is like so many of these things. It's not just corn feed, right? It's not like you go do this thing, you beat the guy and you get, I don't know, like XP, right? Like, no, you actually get like a weapon, or somebody trains you, or you pick up a new skill. So yeah, it's that's my most fun game. Just to put a little dollop on DBQ's explainer, going back through the history of this category. So we on this show deliberately do not do a category that we call Game of the Year, because as many new games as we play, I've put hands on 23 new games this year. Yea, verily, some of those are toe dips. Some of those are things that I spent, got through 60, 70 something percent of the game. But we don't, in my opinion, like, we don't play enough games across the entire landscape of the industry. We're not a media outlet. We don't have 10, 12 writers and reviewers playing every single game under the sun to completion, and writing, thorough reviews about them. So to me, to have a category called Game of the Year, just leans into that whole thing of like how that term across the space of content creation has just become so both malformed and malleable, because it means something different to everyone, and it applies differently so we just stay away from it. And that's why we have this, it's the game that you get the most joy out of, which, as DBQ said, might be the most critically acclaimed game in your mind, might be the best design game in your mind, maybe neither of those, right? Frequently for me, it's not. Like, obviously I would say Expedition 33 would have been like the creative game that I felt like hit, every single major drum beat in terms of craft. But like I said, this is Life of the Party most fun game. So,
and I think that kind of context is valuable, because the reason we ended last night with what we thought would be Game of the Year in other outlets is oftentimes because part of that factor, of us figuring out who we're going to put forth in that category, is looking at it from the viewpoint of some of those other outlets, the viewpoint of the industry, where most fun game can simply just be fun. Like, games can still be fun. They can be heartbreaking and emotional and inspiring, but they can also just be goofy fun sometimes, or just relax and enjoyment fun. So let's do a quick recap here. Since Nate just popped in here at the end, let's do a quick recap before we hit to our final category. Tonight, we talked about most likely to regret not playing in 2025. Swiss had Ghost of Yotai, who we just heard Game Logic talk about. Game Logic talked about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Tao talked about Hades 2. And I talked about Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Then we talked about most likely for a family game night. Tao talked about Rematch, the soccer football game. Swiss and I talked about Split Fiction, and Game Logic talked about Donkey Kong Bonanza. Then we talked about Best Storycraft. Tao talked about Dynasty Warriors Origin, and Game Logic backed him up in terms of the narrative there. Game Logic talked about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Swiss talked about Claire Obscura Expedition 33. And I talked about Dispatch. And I say that with a little bit of passion because I thought it might make other places. Best Comic Relief, Character or Game. Swiss talked about Split Fiction. Tao talked about Kai in Avowed, and Game Logic talked about Monoko in Claire Obscura Expedition 33. And I talked about a little game from Strange Scaffold, Creepy Redneck, Dinosaur Mansion 3. We just got done talking about Hidden Gem, Most Overlooked Game. Game Logic talked about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I talked about The Nightling. Swiss talked about Desktop Survivor 98, and Tao talked about Skate, period. And then our category, our penultimate category. There we go. Got that word eventually there. Life of the party or most fun. Tao talked about Mario Kart World. Swiss and I talked about Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Game Logic talked about Ghost of Yotai. So now our final category of the night. Yes, Nate, I agree with you. Dispatch is amazing. And please go back and listen to my thoughts. Well, actually, you don't have to because you know how good the game is. So our final category of the night is most likely to still be playing in 2026. So this has been, sometimes it is something that is not even a new game that came out this year. It can be something that we are coming back to, or a game as service as it has been in the past. It is, as we look ahead and think about what's on our playlist in 2026, likelihood that this game will see some significant playtime. So I'm going to start off with mine, and mine is Absalom. So the two-person belt scroller beat 'em up roguelike from .emu. This is a game that I talked a little bit about in October, November when it released. Had come back to it. Really, one of the reasons that I put it on this list here is that for the amount that I was looking forward to Marvel's Comic Invasion and the times that I've been playing it, I still just keep thinking about I should be playing Absalom. The combat is tighter. There's more depth to it. The art style is great. So Absalom is my choice. And I think this is the first year in a few years that it's not an RPG or a sports game. So Game Logic, oftentimes you and I are not battling back and forth, but, pounding the drumbeat of sports franchises. So let's hear what your selection is for most likely to be playing in 2026.
Yeah, I think over the majority of the last few years, at least, I'd say last 6, my pick has generally been, as you mentioned, either a sports game or a game as a service game. And this year it kind of falls squarely and neatly right between the two. For me, it'll most likely be F1 25. It's a little ironic because there won't be any F1 26, so I guess I'll still be playing F1 25 next year. But this is a matter of, like, for me, turning the corner coming out of Expedition 33. And I was a little sort of fearful, but also okay with it happening. Like, again, for me, Expedition 33 was peak story, it was peak narrative, it was peak emotional reaction. I just don't expect that to be recreated again for me until another game from Sandfall Interactive maybe comes out. And we talked, about how hard I went in the paint on, like, how, many sleepless nights I spent playing that game. I quite honestly, look, I love video gaming, but I actually don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to play story-driven games where I'm obsessed about, like, completing them before somebody spoils them for me. But I also don't know that I want to be, quote unquote, bothered playing one that doesn't obsess me that much. So at least for right now, I've made a hard 90-degree turn back into what I call forever games, like in games that I will invest like hundreds of hours in, and extract a thing from them. I have gone very hard, most recently into games that had me break out my flight control systems and HOTAS and wheel and pedals, and in particular, driving games that require me to kind of do career management. I have also finally, after years, finally the technology got there, and then finally the technology got good enough that I felt willing to spend. I did subscribe to the F1 Premium Pass this year, and I've kind of fallen back in love with Formula One, which I drifted away from kind of in the mid 2000 teens. And this, in the past year, I've also made a turn into becoming an Apple fan. And of course, F1 will now be on Apple TV next year, so all of this kind of fits neatly. It's Hannibal. I love it when a plan comes together. So yeah, I'm spending a lot of time with F1, which I have on PlayStation 5. So I'm playing that on the PlayStation 5 Pro this year, and that is probably definitely a game that I will be continuing to play into 2026.
All right. So, Tao, we are all playing to form here. Me with brawlers and Game Logic with racing, and your pick is also playing to form.
Yes, so a shooter, but not Call of Duty this time around. It is Battlefield 6, and more specifically RedSec, the RedSec mode, which is their Battle Royale mode that I've been playing a heck of a ton of the last few weeks, and still going to be playing a ton of probably coming this coming year. There's a lot of games I think I could have put on here, but since I hadn't mentioned Battlefield at all with these superlatives, I figured I'd throw it in there. But yeah, I just been having a ton of fun with RedSec. Just like I think I mentioned it when I first was talking about it on the show a few weeks ago. It reminds me of old school Warzone, like the beginning of Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone when that came out. So a little bit more refined, I think, maybe, and just fun gameplay, basically. I guess I got to put that as my most fun game too. But it can be frustrating when playing with randoms, which is what I play with most of the time. So, but yeah, Battlefield 6, RedSec.
All right. As Game Logic said, he loves it when a plan comes together. So, Swiss, you started off last night with the initial choice, and you're going to close off tonight with the initial choice. And not only is that a perfectly fine bookend just because we're glad to have you here, but it's also a perfectly fine bookend because of your choices. So, if you remember what Swiss chose at the top of the hour last night, you know what he's choosing now.
Yeah, going with Hideo Kojima again, and it's Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And this might be like the third or whatever number of year that I've had a Death Stranding game in the Superlative Awards, which is kind of odd. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I know that game is very much like a matter of taste for some people, just because it's like you have to let yourself like get absorbed by fall into the story. Like you have to kind of buy in to his like kind of quirky connection concept, and but I enjoyed the narrative and I like how he writes characters, and so this is one that I've been eager to continue the story from Death Stranding 1, which I haven't for all the time that I've played it. I'm so kind of into just doing things like building a network of roads and whatever. Like I haven't felt like I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of hours in the game. But I think I'm at the point where I can just push to the last level and be done with it if I wanted to, but I haven't been. I've been lingering. But I think I'm going to wrap that up and move on to the sequel and continue the narrative. So that's probably what I'm most likely to be playing, with probably Ghost of Yotei a very close second.
All right. Thanks, Swiss. Thanks for that bookend as well. We've done it, gentlemen. We have got to the end of our 14 different categories. We have covered, as we said at the top of last night's show, 32 different games, along with some other nods and mentions here. I'm going to throw one more thing out here, one more question for you all, since we've got a little bit of time, as I want to know one more game that hasn't been talked about over the last two nights that is in your list that you're hoping to spend some time with over the holiday break. So over our hiatus break, so as I vamp here a little bit in terms of what our plans are here on the Enough to Keep Going podcast, to give you a chance for Swiss and Tao and Game Logic to think about that one more game that they want to give a shout out to. We are going to take a little hiatus here over the next 2 weeks. I think it's only 2 weeks as we think about what's left in December. So we will not have a show the week of the 21st or the week of the 28th. We will be back live with you on Sunday, the 4th, Sunday, January 4th, 2026. We'll be back at the regular time of 8 o'clock Eastern and 7 o'clock Central. I had to stop and think about that after a little bit of behind the scenes mix-ups that some of us had. as Tao is laughing. But yes, we'll be back on January 4th at 8 o'clock Eastern PM. I want to thank everybody that has come through over the last 2 nights. Those of you that are here tonight, Ghostface Killer, Henry Heck, Ramon Terrell, Thrifty, and Nate. Glad to have you all here. And everybody that has had a chance to join us over the course of the year, not only the course of the last 2 nights, but the course of the year, we're glad to have you. If you are finding us later on, come back and join us. We're glad to have your comments, your pushback against us, your agreement, your cheers. We are very thankful for the community engagement that we've had over the course of this year. So, gentlemen, one final game that you want to call out, didn't get mentioned, that maybe didn't quite get on your list somewhere, or something that you are looking forward to spend a little bit of time with over these next 2 weeks?
I go first. I actually got a twofer, Ubisoft twofer.
I only asked for one.
Well, you're getting two. As usual, I'm bending the rules here. No, so that's Star Wars Outlaws, and which is not totally new, but also Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I just picked up. So I want to jump back into Outlaws, and then get into more of the Shadows, which I've played a little bit of so far. But yeah, two really good games so far that are playing on Nintendo Switch too. So be perfect for on the go.
Nice.
I also have 2 games. The old throwback game that I've been nibbling on and off is the old Jonathan Blow game, The Witness. And I'm, now that they dropped like Order of the Sinking Star, I'm getting more hyped up. So I've been kind of going back to that one. And then as far as a game that I have in my Steam library that's new that I haven't kicked off yet and would like to spend a little bit of time over break would be Doom: The Dark Ages.
Nice. Game Logic, you got 2? Because we might as well just keep the pattern going.
No, I don't think I do. No, actually, I do. Doom: The Dark Ages, incidentally, with my Steam wrapped up, my most played game this year. Now that's because I have some things on Steam, some things on Epic. So Expedition 33 is not. I have a Steam copy, but I have multiple copies, and my main copy that I completed is on Epic. So, the data will be a little skewed. But so for me, my 2 games, probably picks that you guys won't like, but definitely I'll probably get some flack from Swiss. Interestingly enough, strangely enough, DBQ, because you mentioned that you had gone back to Destiny 2 for Renegades, I also reinstalled Destiny 2, and also realized that I have everything except for Renegades and Lightfall. And so I the last time I went back, I just rolled a new hunter. So this time I started a new warlock. So I'm playing through the New Light campaign, and again, that's kind of what inspired me to make that comment that I made about this year. To me, is kind of famous for games that remove a lot of friction. Destiny 2, if you're coming in new, like, just removes a lot of the friction, and for those of us who have nostalgia about it, like, you're just going back through old stomping grounds. I spent some time tonight before the podcast with our good friend what is it, Devram K down in the EDZ, and like all the stuff, like how stingy exotics were to get a hold of, and having to manage skins for weapons, like all that stuff is like out of your windshield. It's like no longer like a thing. It's like stuff doesn't necessarily fall off trees, but like you get things, right? And it's like, it's not this just like global stinginess like it used to be. And it's just kind of a good like nostalgia romp. So I'm probably going to continue playing through those, because what I always loved about Destiny 2 was the story arcs, right? The campaigns. So I think I'm going to go through and spend some time doing that. And then probably because it's over the holidays, I'll probably my Madden NFL 26 season has hit a very interesting point where I'm 9-8 right now. And I'm going into the final weekend of the regular season, and I think the way it goes is if I win and the Dolphins lose, then there's going to be some type of statistical tiebreaker to see who gets the last slot in the playoffs, which is very exciting for me, like being a team that had like a 2-4 start, to have come back. at the end of the year. So that's probably what I'll be spending my time digging into over the holidays.
Nice. Oh, you're tempting me to roll another character, go back in Destiny 2. So my two games here. Go ahead, Todd. Were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say
First-
I see Destiny in my Steam list every now and then, and I'm always tempted. But then I think about all the friction, so like now I'm conflicted.
Yep. I think the portal does eliminate some of that too. My two games that I know are things that I want to touch on over the course of the next couple weeks while we're off is one that I played a little bit on PlayStation 5, maybe early in 2024, but because it is getting a significant third-person patch, I'm going to come back to Avatar, what is it? Pandora, whatever the Ubisoft Avatar game is, which is Far Cry Avatar, but now it's got a third-person perspective time to come out, along with some DLC for the new movie. And the other game that I really want to, I'm going to come back to. It's only 3 hours. I'm going to finish it. Sword of the Sea. So, maybe in the dead of winter, surfing around on some sand will help the temperatures feel a little warmer. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you so much for this great time, as always, in terms of our conversation, our dialogue, our ability to poke each other in good fun and in good humor, but also to get the best out of each other in those comments as well. Any other final wrap-ups? Any other comments, notes, housekeeping that we have to talk about?
No housekeeping, just a comment. I was kind of looking back through my my spreadsheet, and thank you guys for not making me, but having me start doing spreadsheets over the last few years. I actually went down.
He's the
in my
last one,
games.
but we all have spreadsheets now.
Yeah, I know. Eventually, it was going to happen. I noticed from comparing just this past year to 2024, I went down about half of the games. So it was like 40 something, and I'm down to like I think 24 games in all. I think 19 of those were brand new to 2025. So I didn't really buy a lot or play a lot this past year, as I have in the last like 3 or 4 years that I've been keeping track. So I just thought it was kind of interesting for me, because I mean, I'm usually playing a lot of stuff, but this year was, especially at the beginning of the year, was really low. Not until like September when I started playing and buying a lot more stuff. So just thought it's kind of cool looking at that stat.
Nice. Yes, yes. The joke about us keeping our spreadsheets in terms of how much we purchase or play over the course of a year. Maybe we'll break those out in the beginning of January to see what our budgets look like as coming into 2026.
Yeah.
So
I was just doing that for this end of the year stuff, because it was hard trying to go back, trying to remember what I had played and going back through all the the different services and stuff. So.
All right. Tao, thanks for keeping us honest. Swissguard, so glad to have you back, pull you out of retirement. Hopefully we get you back a few other times over the course of 2026. Game Logic, thank you for keeping us all moving forward and continuing to make Enough to Keep Going possible with all the work that you do each week in and out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I know it makes such a difference for our ability to do what we do. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Game Logic, Towmaster99, and Swissguard, this has been episode 417, the part 2 of the 9th annual Superlative show for Enough to Keep Going. Until we see you in 2026, play the games you love those you play with, and be kind to yourself. Good night, everybody.